Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. I'm your host, Tom. Here with me, Massimo, my co host. And for the first time ever, we are going to do some exciting reveal, but we didn't know how to do it. So instead, it's going to be a less exciting reveal of our first guest on the program, Ben Salami. Ben, great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Tom. Woohoo! Cheers.
But,
Well, thank you so much,
uh,
Tom, for having me. I'm super excited to be part of this. And you mentioned I'm the first guest. I'm honored, truly
all
honored.
right, okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, hopefully not the last. I mean, I don't, depending on how this goes, we might just scrap the whole idea of bringing on guests. So you might be
I'm
first and
going to leave a
last
lot
person.
bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah. So there's a lot riding on this actually, Ben. There's a lot of pressure. So Mass, I gotta call it out because I think some of the people who watch the video will call it out too.
Yeah,
You're looking a little bare.
I know. It's for those of you that don't know, I'm having a pretty serious jaw surgery at the end of the month or end of April. And so going into it, they're prepping and taking all these scans of my face. They're chopping my bottom jaw and top jaw. I'm gonna hopefully look like Brad Pitt at the end, but we'll see. Anyways, I called the surgeon and they're like, "You got to shave." And I'm like, "Seriously?" So I called them. I'm like, "You actually want me to shave?" And they're just like, "Well, if you want your face to be symmetrical at the end of this, I'd recommend shaving." So here we are. I had my pre-op stuff
It wasn't an
yesterday, and
instant decision though, right? Like you were like, oh, but
I was like, "Can I leave the mustache?" They're like, "Well, yeah, you could leave that." And I just decided, F it, and
maybe you could do like Ben style, like a very
like
manicured.
goatee.
Mine's backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must
Yeah.
know. See, I don't remember your beard at all. So I thought looks pretty good right now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Maybe it's
I
a new
think we've
look.
only met a
Like
couple times. Like we met way back when you first showed us the app, and then I've seen you at some trade shows and but yeah, usually I do have at least a scruff. Like I'm
Oh,
very
okay. It
rarely
wasn't like
this
a
is
huge.
no, it's not a big beard. No. I mean, this is the first time in my life since I've known Tom that he has more facial hair than me.
yeah, it feels
So
good.
he's got a
Yeah.
dad beard going.
I really
So
rub it in. Like
Tom
when
took
I'm
yeah.
maybe
thinking,
three
I'm
years
always
to get to that level.
Yeah. Yeah, it took a while, yeah.
yeah. I've
So
never shaved in my life. Yeah, this is just many 30 years. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into it here, Ben. I appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to this conversation. We know your tech very well. Maybe not as well as maybe I'd like to, but we obviously integrated with it, played around with it. We know a lot of clients who use it and love it. I know you guys have had a ton of success. I think what are you number one in the App Store right now for finance apps, or I don't know what category it is. So you've had just an absolute ton of success, and so we really do appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your words of wisdom with us and our audience. And so maybe just to start, love to hear maybe just a bit about you and kind of your origins and where the idea of the Canadian mortgage app even came from. Like, was it just like it came to you in an instant and you just started doing it? Were you working with a client? Like, how did it kind of come about?
Hmm.
Where did this all come from and get to where you're at now?
Wow. Well, thank you
A
so
loaded
much.
question.
Yeah, several questions. So just to go back a little bit, yes, it's Canada's number one mobile app by search,
Wow.
by popularity, by reviews, and Apple featured it as an essential finance app.
wow, congrats.
Essential, which is,
Decent.
I mean, I have it right here.
Are you scrapping? Oh, there you go. Oh no
I
shit, eh?
personally downloaded it, but I used Ron for my mortgage, but I downloaded it before I called him and ran some pre-approval scenarios and all that. Yeah.
Very
So
We listened to this podcast too called All In, Ben. They said like Apple is scrapping with a lot of their developers in their app store. Are they coming after you yet?
They've tried a
No.
couple times, yeah.
like the revenue split and all that,
Oh
right? Like
yeah,
that's where they get
Yeah.
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 So Apple generally charges, we call it Apple tax.
Uh,
It's about 30%. Usually Google
wow.
does the same, Amazon does the same. But
Okay.
so Apple has sort of program for startups where they take
Hmm.
20% of the first
Are you a
year.
startup still? Are you a startup?
We're considered a startup
Nice.
in Apple's.
I won't tell. They better not be. If Tim Cook is listening, he's gonna be
Yeah.
Yeah.
not happy with
I mean,
this. But
compared to
yeah.
what's out there, I mean, TurboTax, Coho, we're competing with, like, not competing in
The
business,
big.
but in
Yeah.
apps. Wealth
Yeah. Right.
Simple,
Wow.
Wow.
Mint, like it's, yeah. Well,
Is it it's probably a similar story on the Google Play Store. You guys are heavily downloaded there
yeah,
too, obviously. Yeah.
Nice. Well, yeah, Ben, take me back a bit just to the question about bit about your origin story, where this kind of came from,
sure.
and where you're going.
So my background is in software, right? I'm a software engineer. I graduate from University of Guelph with a master's in computer
Oh, my
science.
parents live in Guelph.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
And so right after school, I joined, I joined the Big Blue being IBM, and I was there for
We're the little blue. We're little blue. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
I was there for like
Very good.
7 years
Yeah.
actually, mostly working on security projects, large enterprise backend stuff. There wasn't little room for like tweaking with like buttons and sliders. Anyways, I mean, I'm always into UI. I love UI. I love designing. So I was buying a condo, and I created this nice spreadsheet with everything about that condo. Property taxes, condo fees, even looked
Yeah.
up land transfer taxes, the mortgage payments. And I was traveling with my realtor at that time and my laptop from property to property, plugging into my spreadsheet. Like this, and battery would run out. It's just crazy. So
Yeah, back in the day when you had those brick laptops, right? That would
exactly
just
with the
yeah,
charger,
die
like
after an hour. Yeah. Fan would just be humming.
I'm sure
Yeah.
the mortgage
Yeah.
or the realtor was impressed by it
the
though. Like
realtor was
he probably didn't even have anything like that, right?
they probably
On
had
a
some
sheet.
tools. I mean, I have no idea. I did a lot of
Okay.
research building the spreadsheet. It was like very complex. Usually engineers are a bit on that end where they need to like
Yeah.
what's like
Yeah.
to the millicent, what can I afford? So hey, I said, you know what? Let me just build an app. I started learning iOS from scratch.
Like you just did like online courses. Like IBM wasn't doing iOS at the time, I assume.
IBM was a different department was iOS, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I just learned from like online people. Just started with a
Wow.
text box and a slider, just moving that slider and text box would change. And it's like amazing. Oh my God.
And that's where you're at now, right? That's basically
That slider is still
no,
there.
yeah.
That slider is
That's
still
not a stuff.
there.
Yeah.
We actually kept that
Yeah.
slider on the app 10 years now. Nobody
Wow.
uses it anymore, but I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I just published it. I'm like, you know what? Let me just publish it, go through the whole experience to see how it works. Boom. First week, I got 1,000 downloads. And it was like, wow, that's crazy.
How long did that take? Like when you say, "Oh, I just built it and released it," was that like a week or was that like a year? Like what was
Oh,
that?
couple months. It was a very
Oh wow,
basic app. It was super basic.
just so basic. I see, I
Like
see.
I
So
wish I had
you
a
kind of
picture to
went,
show you.
you went like MVP, like true lean startup style, where you just got something and got it out
There
there.
was no business plan, there's no strategy, there was no clients. It was just I got an app working on my phone. Let me put it on the app store.
Wow,
That's really
cool.
all it was.
What kept you going? Like 6 a.m. That sounds. I mean, maybe some listeners who I don't know would be listening and saying, "Hey, I want to build tech." I think this gives like a good example of it's not just, going down to Silicon Valley and getting a bunch of money and throwing it at some developers and boom, you got a tech company. There's a lot behind the scenes that people don't see, right? Which is for you like the 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. Well, you have a full-time job just grinding it out, right? Like what
Just
kind of what kind of kept you going? Like did you kind of see was you said it was a passion project? Was it just
it
the
was
passion for it or yeah.
I mean, on one end, I'm working with corporate. On the other is I'm actually working with individuals. Like people would write, "Oh,
Mm.
can you add biweekly?" I'm like, "What's biweekly?" Research,
Google.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, shoot, there is 6 different payment frequencies, and how do they all work?" So that whole research was pretty exciting, and kept adding it. But it was the feedback of the people that really kept me going.
Yeah.
Like I had
Very
I
cool.
had one guy write a 5-star review, of course, saying, "Thank you to the team who built this app. It has helped my wife and I buy our first home."
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool, man.
That
That's
Yeah.
motivating.
it
Yeah.
gives
I
me
just got like
shivers
little shivers. Yeah, I know. Just a
just
little like,
thinking
yeah.
like, wait,
Yeah.
I helped a family move and start a new generation into a new house by just writing some code. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That is
So,
cool, right?
so
Yeah.
that just kept going. But I mean, there comes to a point where I needed to leave the corporate. And that was probably the
Yeah.
biggest thing.
Because you weren't making money on the app yet, right?
Zero.
Like it wasn't monetized.
No,
Yeah. Okay.
it was just helping people
Right.
when they asked for stuff. So what happened is I was reading this book, the story of Cortez, Driven. So the book was called Driven. He had a bunch of men, I think 300 men. They
Yeah.
took the ships to what's called now the Yucatan territory
Yeah.
to invade, I guess,
Yeah. It was the
somebody.
Incas or the Mayans or yeah.
But they were
Yeah.
outnumbered 10 to 1. And what
Right.
Cortez did, and this book, wish I remember the name of the author, he was in Dragon's Den. Maybe you guys can help me. Blue eyes, the good looking guy.
Oh, Hershevik?
Hershevik, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Robert, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Robert Herjavec, yes. So that book, Driven, he was telling the different styles of leadership, and one of them was Cortez's style, and his style was to inject fear into his men. So he basically,
Where is this going? How does this relate to a mortgage app? I'm yeah, dude.
We're getting there.
where are we
Yeah,
going
yeah,
with
all
this,
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Okay,
Anyways,
okay.
long story short, he told his men to get off the ships, and he burned down the ships. And he
Mm,
said to his man, the only way back home is through the enemy
If you win.
ships.
Yeah.
Through the enemy ships. So
wow.
that kind of triggered something in my head. I'm like, you know what? The only way to do something with this app is to burn the ship,
Burn the boats.
burn the boat,
Wow.
Burn the blue man
then
or
burn.
IBM or
Yeah.
whatever.
Big
So
blue.
the
Yeah.
same week I quit, and funny thing is, during this week I got into a car accident, which was actually a blessing because I was fine. But the insurance company came with a nice check,
Oh,
and I said to myself, "This is it. Like the universe
things
is
happen for
talking
a
to
reason.
me.
Yeah,
The universe
yeah,
is saying,
yeah.
hey,
That's
you
right.
want to
Yeah.
start your own business, some money to survive. I mean, it wasn't much.
Here's your
It was
seed money.
10,000.
I think that's the other thing with it, Mass. You can probably talk to this more. It's like when you're at that stage, like you're literally starting from zero. Like $10,000 can last you a while. I mean, if you're living, I don't know, you were living in your parents' basement, Mass, at the time. You were a lot younger than you
Yeah.
are now, and you're
Yeah.
just eating ramen noodles. Like 10 grand is like a half a year, right? Like, it's a ton of runway, right? Especially
Yeah.
if you're
It's
doing what you're saying, Ben, which is working till 4 a.m. Like, a person with that passion and $10,000, like that can go real far. And you kind of had that experience too, Mass. Yeah,
I budgeted like 4 months. I'm like, 4 months, I'm gonna be okay.
still, right.
And
Yeah.
and I told my parents. My parents obviously freaked out because they're from the other generation. The boomers were
Yeah.
like, "What? You got such a good job. You got
Right.
crazy." I'm like, you know what? I can always get another job.
You can always go back, right? Always go back.
I mean, I couldn't have gone back to the same place, but go anywhere. Apple, Facebook, Google. I mean, I had, I guess, the credentials and the experience, and it's like,
Yeah.
so I didn't see it
And
as
the
a
other
huge.
thing about it too, to going back, is that this is my thinking because I came from a corporate job too, Ben, and I joined Blue Mortgage. It's only going to help your resume, right? Like actually starting a business and building something from scratch. That was a big reason why I did join Blue. I didn't actually have visions of staying for Blue Mortgage for a long time. I don't know if I've shared this with you, Ben, but Bass has been a friend for a while. And I said, hey, can I join you? Maybe 6, 12 months. We can do a little thing. I'd love to have it as a resume boost because I knew it would be. And even place I was interviewing, big corporate jobs were saying, oh, you know what, we want some more startups experience because I was a consultant. And so that was the plan, and here I am 5 years later, right? But yeah, you're right. You can always go back, right? It's much easier to go that direction than
Yeah.
this direction. Yeah.
I mean, if I were to go back, I would probably see it as a defeat. Cortez's army would be swimming back at that point.
You'd be swimming the big blue ocean liner that's IBM,
But it
right? Yeah.
was,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think I went past 4 months. I think I went to 12 months. All my credit cards were maxed out. My brother tells the story pretty good. I didn't care. Like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'll figure it out.
Well, and it wasn't as if you were just like doing this like for fun in your basement. It was like you were still, I assume, during those that turned into 12 months, getting a lot more of those types of reviews, right? Like it was, I
like
would
there were
hope
positive signs and
Oh, yeah,
that you were getting that
totally.
positive feedback, right? It wasn't
yeah.
you in your laboratory just being like, I think this is a good idea. You're getting that market feedback. And I think that's a lesson we try to take, which is like, if you're providing value for people, the money will come, right? I mean, we went to a conference, Mass, a couple months ago now. Yeah. They kind of
Yeah.
said that, right? It's like, if you just if you provide value to the community, monetization is the easy part. It's actually building
It's
something
the
that's
result.
valuable that people will use that is actually the hardest part. And then,
That's true.
and Alex Hormozy, I don't know if you know him too. He says the same thing. He says, make it better, make it free, and then sell them on the add-ons. And he said, I've done that 3 times and made millions of dollars on it. And he's one of these guys who does a whole bunch of things. But I think I mean, it seems very relevant to your experience.
Yeah.
I'm curious with the like when you were building the app, was there a lot of like pivoting that went on? Like it sounds like when you first built it, it was to help you calculate a mortgage, and that's a big part of what the app is now. But in that first 12 months, I'm assuming that like you were trying this, oh, I could monetize this way. Like
Oh,
what, tell me a little bit about that. Yeah.
I think I've tried thousands of things and just refactored the app multiple times. And then someone came along and said, "You should not be calling yourself Canadian Mortgage App. This is not in French."
Oh no.
So then I'm like, "Oh, French. Okay." So not only I added French, I added Spanish, Hindi, Chinese, and now
Oh geez.
users in China were downloading it. And it's like,
That is
"Oh,
awesome.
shoot. Now
Yeah.
I have international clients now." Well, not clients, users. I have international users. That's crazy. I mean, I
Wow.
got
Yeah.
contacted from Brazil to build an app for a some kind of bank they have there.
The Brazilian mortgage app or something
Things
like
were
that,
just
or yeah,
coming from all
BMA.
corners, but still wasn't monetized.
Hmm.
I was still building stuff. Where the monetization came in place is a lot of people say, "Hey, why don't you just put ads on it?" So I did this. I did
Yeah.
some quick calculations. I didn't really want that ugly ad banner that everyone has.
Banner.
This is
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
like download
Candy Crush
Candy.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
So
Yeah.
I figured the best way to do this is to put a map where brokers or realtors or people like industry lawyers can be found, sort of like Google
Sure.
Maps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was my first monetization strategy, to put a location aware ad where it would be based on proximity of the device of the user. And that was
And
it.
what?
So I sold
And
it
the
for,
broker had to pay you, I guess, what, a monthly fee or something to be like to be on, actually be on the map.
yeah,
What was the idea, Ben?
it was about
Yeah.
$100 a year actually at that point. Because also there was another problem, pricing. I didn't really understand pricing.
Right.
Right.
I
Sure.
was like, $100 for me as a consumer is a lot, but business to business, it's
Different world, right?
different
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Something that we think a lot about too when we're building tech is, okay, for features you can go deep, right? So for you, maybe it's okay when I'm actually calculating qualification. Okay, now I'm going to add land transfer tax, and now I'm going to add whatever the stress test, and I'm going to do these different things that are relevant and just make it a more sophisticated calculation. Or you can go wide, right? Where you can say, okay, well, now I'm going to add, I don't know, a report generation, right? Or something like that. How do you kind of, I guess, prioritize those, or how do you think about those things, I guess, now versus then in both scenarios? Like, do you prefer to go deep versus, you were kind of saying as an engineer, you like to go deep and get, to the
Mhm.
fraction correct. And that's more of what I tend to. But I think there's also value in going wide because maybe you can go and capture different audiences. So I'm just curious if you have kind of a philosophy as it relates to that.
Oh, so I guess at the early stages, I was just going wherever it was taking me. I wasn't
Yeah, yeah,
thinking about
yeah,
deep,
yeah,
wide. So like, oh, I got new
yeah,
information, let's put it in. It was
yeah.
kind of like that. Nowadays, because each tool or each feature we have is deep and wide, if we want to
Hmm.
introduce something new, we have to sort of keep up with the standards. Like if we introduce a new tool and it doesn't have a
Right.
report, it's like, oh, we got a bunch of people saying, "Hey, I want to generate a report now." And it's like, okay, then we have to have the report. So it's just getting larger and larger, and more integrations now, translation, more languages. So each
Yeah.
tool is just taking us longer and longer to build. I can see that progress that way.
And I'm sure back in the day and even now, you have people dangling money at you and asking you to build like the Brazilian thing and maybe realtors and other things. Like it probably took a lot of gusto or focus to be like, no, I'm in this lane. As far as I know, you guys have stayed in one lane. which we try to do,
No,
or maybe I'm wrong.
he's
Okay,
laughing.
but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, why don't you
Yeah.
answer that before I go further?
Yeah.
So Tom's mentioning when I started the business was very different back then. It was a consulting practice, and I went through similar things. I remember charging a guy in Texas $150 to make this workflow that helped him sell something, and I was so excited. I would just chase anything,
Oh
Yeah.
like
yeah, of
anything that would pay the bills, I would do. And so,
course.
yeah, I mean, have you expanded? Have you said yes to other markets? And if not, how did you say no? Yeah.
I don't think we ever said no. I mean, personally, it was me at the beginning. I just took on more work and more work. I'm just generally a very fast developer, and I sleep 5 hours a day. So
Seriously?
seriously,
How do you do that?
I have no idea. Somehow my genetics
Do
says,
you do a lot of caffeine?
oh yeah,
Or
I mean, 4 or 5 coffees a day. But
okay.
Nice.
but I try to sleep longer. I
That helps.
I
Yeah.
do try to sleep. My body
Oh, this is like a lifelong thing. You've never slept more than 5 hours.
well since I guess school, since grad school.
Okay.
Mm.
Just
Huh.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, you're a fast developer and you don't
Yeah,
sleep a lot.
so I just took on whatever I could, really. And I mean, I built insurance apps. I built an app that will tell you who unfriends you on Facebook, and Facebook cut me off there. It was pretty funny. I actually had about 5,000 users, each paying $1 to get the app. See, generally, I think I tend to solve my own problems. So after a quick breakup, I saw my friends list dropping.
Oh
I'm like,
my
who are these people? I want to know.
God.
I want to
Uh,
know in case I see them in the mall or in the street and be like, no, I don't want to be too friendly. So, so I built a very basic app that will take a snapshot of your friends today, and tomorrow it would check again, snapshot, and say, oh, somebody's missing. Do a quick query to see whether they're still on Facebook or they're not.
Wow.
And if they're
oh my
not
God.
on Facebook, well, they got deactivated. And
So Facebook bought you or just shut you down?
well, Facebook paid it, I think, 20 million to shut me down.
Yeah, not
Okay.
to you though, right?
Not
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
It-
But Ben, yeah, you talk about these things, okay, you don't say no, but then also you're at a point in your, I guess, development cycle for the Canadian Mortgage app where every feature is just taking longer and longer and longer. There must be a point where you trade off, right? Where
yeah.
it's like someone comes and is like, hey, can you make an app for insurance? Let's say, I don't know, it sounds like you've already done that. But at the same time, you have this feature that's going to take, maybe 3 months to build. It's like, how do you kind of have those and how do you think about that? Like, I assume, yeah, when you're earlier in your career, you can say yes to anything, but now, much more mature, how do you kind of do those trade-offs?
Now it's very difficult. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas people come with and say, "Hey, can you build this? Can you even give me a quote?" And it's like,
Hmm.
unfortunately, I can't. Like,
Right.
once we set up our sort of roadmap for the quarter, uh,
It's locked in, eh? Yeah.
it's yeah, I mean, there's some wiggle room that we can squeeze things in there, but it's hard to start a new project altogether. It really
Right.
depends. If someone comes with a big check, then maybe you can take those features and say, you know what, let's delay them a little bit. It's That's fine, I guess.
No, and I think that makes sense because I would assume, yeah, over time it gets harder and harder to say yes to everything because I think obviously your bandwidth gets, more constrained, but also there's more ideas, right? It's like as you grow, there's more and more people with problems that want you to solve them, right? So
Yeah.
I would assume that's only going to increase over time. So one thing I was going to ask too, Ben, a bit is, you talked about, okay, you did a bit of insurance, and I think for the Canadian Mortgage app, yeah, you work with brokers and you work with realtors. For us in our audience, we work a lot with mortgage brokers primarily. I'm always curious about this is how do you kind of compare those two industries? We've heard different things. We have, I'm not going to say which client it is, but you said the only people cheaper than mortgage brokers are realtors. So I don't know if that's that's the experience that you had, Ben, or if you feel that they're very similar, or what's kind of been your experience working with these two different similar but different groups of professionals.
Yeah, I mean, at realtors, there's a lot more of them. A lot of
Yeah.
them are part-time. A lot of them are working full-time somewhere else anyways. So the license just sits there for friends and family.
Yeah.
I've had conversations where the guy's email signature says top 2%, whatever, multi-million dollar, and we're arguing over like 10 email threads back and forth over whether he should get a discount on the $10 monthly plan or not. And I'm like, dude, what do you want me to give it to you? $7? Like,
If you're truly multi-million, the amount of
Yeah.
time writing those emails,
costs money.
yeah, yeah.
Every
Well, your time's
every
yeah,
meeting costs
yeah,
money. Every time the team and I
yeah,
meet for half an hour, even, I tell them, look, 1, 2, 3 times half an hour. This meeting costs us $500.
yeah.
Did
Didn't
we?
Shopify have a tool that calculated that for you?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, maybe, and
When
it's open source, Ben. You should take a look at that.
Oh, yeah, Shopify.
I didn't know it was open source. Yeah,
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 I
because they
think
were
it was
trying to
Google
cut down
calling
on the
them.
meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Once you
because then
put
also
the,
Shopify would have big salaries and like 50 people at the meeting.
yeah,
Like this meeting
it's
cost us 10
insane.
grand,
Like,
right? Yeah,
if you
yeah,
actually sit there and
yeah,
count and basically say the feature we developed after a month cost all our salaries, this many meetings, the rent, the
yeah.
electricity, uh, the Zoom subscription. If you count all that, seriously, if you count all that,
The server costs for
server
sure.
costs, and then see when are we going to break even? Is this even a business?
do you find that with mortgage brokers too? Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Sam.
I guess that
Uh,
back to the
Oh,
original
are
question.
they
back to
arguing over two
I'm
bucks as well?
trying to
Yeah.
avoid answering the
Oh, he's
question. We
yeah,
have
Oh, okay.
diplomatic.
there's the new agent who doesn't
Yeah.
want to save money. There's the super expert who has money, wants to save time. So we get all types of people coming in, but some of them are surprisingly very successful, but do not want to invest in their business. I think it's a mentality thing. It's not whether
Yeah,
they're cheap or not, it's whether they understand that their business needs investment, needs capital.
yeah,
That's it. It's just whether they watch enough business
right.
classes and courses that tells them, hey, you have to have X amount of capital for any
Yeah,
business, really.
yeah, it's interesting. It's I used to work with pretty big multinational corporation. Like I say I was a consultant back in the day, and their rule was if we invest capital and we get our money back in 3 years, we're good,
3 years.
right? And if you actually think about that from like a interest perspective, that's actually like you're putting up $1 and you're getting 33% a year. It's kind of like a 33% interest bond. Like it's very good, right? But and that was a very high bar. Like it was very tough to hit that bar. But they said, hey, if we can get our money back in 3 years, we'll do the initiative.
If you get your money back in 3 years, then you're not making 33% interest. You're just you get back your principal. There's no interest.
Yeah, I guess right. But for the first 3 years, it is. But what I'm saying is, yeah,
Oh,
what's
6 years.
the ROI on that invest or the what would you call it? There's IRR, internal rate of return, right? There's
Hmm.
something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So in any case, but if you said that too, I think certain folks, professionals that we work with, I think there are some people who get that. But to your point with the capital, you say, hey, put up $1,000 now, and in 3 years, you'll get $1,001. It's like, whoa, right? It's a bit of a different conversation, and I think it's just, yeah, maybe it's a bit of a mentality thing, and it's not right or wrong. I think it's just different mindsets for different professions and different people. I guess businesses, I would say too, in their scale, right? But I think the challenge for those people who really do want to scale and get to that next level is to use that mentality. Hey, the big corporations,
I
they aren't
guess,
going to see a penny back for 3 years, right?
well, I guess it's
Or
also
then, yeah,
difficult, right, Tom? It's very
yeah,
difficult for a new agent to decide should they put their money in service A or should they put the money in service B.
opportunity cost
they,
with it,
they
right?
only
Yeah,
get X amount of dollars. It's not like I can do
hmm
both. So I have to pick and choose. And that's really the fun of business. It's
right.
which chess move do you move next?
You only get one move, right?
Yeah.
There in chess. Yeah, yeah,
And that's why you go and read reviews, talk to peers, figure out whether this is going to make sense for you or not. And you just throw that and just go all the way. Like CRM is a must. 100%, right, Tom?
yeah. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you know,
Like
I was
if
waiting for
you,
Mass to,
Yeah, I heard Blue Mortgage
yeah,
is good too.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard about them. I've heard about them.
CRM is
Yeah.
non-negotiable, right? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
after that,
One question we had here that we were going to ask, I'm curious, is like, so your app, oftentimes the homeowner or potential homeowner is using it on their leisure, trying to figure out what they can afford. And often I think the broker, the agent is using it in front of the homeowner to like prove some calculations. Have you guys ever thought of a web app where the agent can like turn their laptop around and show it? Like you clearly chose mobile.
went there
Why?
first.
And
Yeah.
would there ever be a web app, or do you think it's not the right way to go? Yeah.
I'm going to answer that question in two parts. Why mobile? Well, I told you, I started building an app. That's how we
Yeah,
started.
yeah, yeah.
Usually companies go backwards. They
Well, I
start
was
with the
gonna say
web.
it's usually
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now we have one already. It's ready to go. Actually,
Oh,
yeah, it's ready to go.
It's newer though, right? But I think I knew. I don't. Last
Yeah,
time you spoke to Mass, which was like 2 years ago, I don't think it was.
it's fairly new. I mean, it was in development for about a year. It's called the Calculator Hub. So there's a bunch of tools on the CanadianMortgageApp.com. If you go there, there's a web. It does property financing sheets, the feature sheets. It creates nice reports. But one thing I wanted to like sort of break it down because people think it's an app. They don't know all like the big picture of it.
Okay.
So there are about 13 different user types on the app, and they all see
Oh wow.
different things. So when you're using it, for example, Tom, when you use it, you only see one version of it. There's 12 other versions that you don't get to see. It's either one or the other 12. So the broker sees something different. Their clients see something different. The
The
realtor using the
realtor.
broker's app
Yeah.
sees something
Right.
different.
The realtor using the broker's app. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
realtor
Okay.
co-branded sees something else. The client
Uh,
of the realtor who's
yeah.
co-branded sees something else. So when we publish a feature, it's like first we go down to this list. Okay,
Who gets it?
customizations for
Yeah.
each one of them. Because some
Yeah. Yeah.
cannot create reports, some have to create co-branded reports. It's the only way. Some cannot even see the feature. And it's like that's really what's taking a lot of time. But we've been able to like hit 1 million users, all
Yeah.
different types of people using it. So that's something people generally don't know. They just think it's an app. No, well, it's an app for real estate agents with different features
Yeah.
for
Yeah. And I
brokers.
guess
Mm.
as you think about doing a web app, it's like, okay, well, what does that mean for the 13 different? Do you ever in your like, is there ever days where you and Andy are like, man, I wish there was just one user, right? Are
Oh,
those?
I wish.
Is that did I hit
But
a sore
other
spot
companies
there?
have the same
Yeah.
problem. Like a
Oh, they do.
LinkedIn user,
Yeah.
whether they're an employer, employee, recruiter, manager of the recruiting company, they all
Mm.
see different things on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah.
Facebook is
Well,
even crazier. But
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And different permissions and yeah, it goes on and on. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing a little bit. That's a hard part of too. I think I was getting at earlier with the deep versus wide question is like there's actually a lot of cost. You know, you make a new feature and you go maybe wide and you get it out and you maybe capture these new people. You're not real. There's a ton of those downstream effects you don't even realize. It's like, hey, in I launched this new user type thinking, what the heck? But now 5 years from now, I'm still paying that price, right? I think
oh
there's
yeah,
another concept where it's
that's
like
true.
every feature you make, when you launch it, even if you ignore all the dev costs and everything like that, just from like a support perspective, it starts negative, right?
Yeah.
And from a DevOps, from a
100%.
all the things, and it's only like when you get a ton of use that it actually starts to get into that positive territory. It's not just start throwing features at a wall at the sure way to, create a lot of pain for you, right?
It's
Sounds like
actually
you're feeling that too.
it's actually interesting because I would say maybe 80% of the functionality is not being used by the app.
Right.
Like people, I guess 80% use 20% of all the features.
Yeah.
But so the question is, why do we go and develop all the other cool stuff?
Yeah.
And the answer
Yeah.
is like very simple. We have professional users
Yeah.
who go deep, so
Yeah. Yeah.
deep, and they market the app to the other 80%. They
Right.
tell their friends about it,
They're the thought leaders. Right.
and they
Yeah.
help us. I mean, I talk to agents from every bank.
Mm.
I have a contact, not from a head office perspective, but individual agents who are part of RBC or part of CIBC, and they always come in and we have this discussion with them on,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
which way, which it's pretty cool.
No, very cool. And I was gonna say it's almost maybe a little bit like a VC, right? In the sense of you're making bets. And you actually don't know when you create the feature, you actually don't know which one is maybe the biggest usage. And yeah, you're gonna maybe you have 8 misses, but you just have one that just takes off and
I know.
that pays for the other eight that were misses too, right? So it's
Sometimes
interesting. Yeah.
sometimes even the most basic feature is like the biggest hit, and it's
I know.
crazy.
And you're like, really?
Yeah.
Like
That's what you're getting
really,
excited about? Yeah.
We could have done
But
this
look
like,
over here. I spent 3 months on this other thing. Like, come on.
Yeah,
yeah.
we get that. Yeah.
I know I want to be respectful of your time, Ben. I really appreciate the time you took to jump on here. If someone was listening right now and is like, I want to start an app, Ben, did you? What would be the one piece of advice you would give them?
Well, if you're thinking about an app, if you have an idea about an app, it's not just enough to have the idea. I think you should do lots of research. Figure out your
Yeah.
client, figure out who is your people that you're going to sell to, your market, your distribution, right? It's very expensive to market an app. So is it viral? Does it have a network effect? So all those things you need to think about, and then you also need capital. The most important thing you can do is burn the boat.
Yeah,
That's good.
no, completely. No, it's true, right? Ideas sometimes is well, ideas are tough, the right idea, but sometimes that's the easy part. It's actually doing it, putting in the work, getting it there, and burn the boats is a great way to get there. So thanks again, Ben. We
Thank you.
appreciate it, and yeah, I think this was a successful guest. Maybe we'll get. I don't think this will be the last guest. I think this was.
Yeah, we're not shutting down
We're
after
not
this.
shutting down
So,
Oh,
after
thank
this.
God.
Yeah, you can breathe again. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Thanks, Ben.